complain about are completely different. The things that they think the game is fun for are completely different. And so part of the reason why we completely revamped the opening cutscene after launch was because to make it much more clear, like it is randomly generated. Like we didn't quite put it is randomly generated on the screen, but we tried really hammering it home a little bit because people had a much better time when they understood when their expectations matched the game a little bit better.
Gotcha. How do you feel? We've talked a lot about procedural myth making. You really wanted that D&D, but you also wanted that D&D feel. What do you feel is really like? I don't know. What's human and vital about like procedural myth making? Because it's something new to sort of. I could say it's sort of new to games, but it's kind of like what it's kind of the equivalent of like playing telephone.
Yeah, I mean it's. I think. For me, I think the thing that's interesting in the overlap between procedural gameplay and myths is that we all tell stories differently. We all emphasize different aspects of different stories, and so I'm not sure how obvious this is in the actual gameplay, but we definitely were hoping that people would get the idea that there is no one truth, that it is about what's true to you and what matters to you when you're telling your story, and how you remember things matters. How we talk about things matters. And I think it's interesting to think about like why do we make games replayable? Like what's the point? I mean, yeah, okay, you can give like a capitalist whatever response, but at a base level, it is enjoyable to explore different aspects of something. And so actually playing around with the storytelling of what it means to explore different aspects of something in a satisfying way. I think that overlaps really nicely with mythologies.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of why we chose the ancient Mesopotamia as an inspiration point, because a lot of those gods and goddesses were essentially recycled into other pantheons. Some of it was really blatant, some of it was more subtle, but it was really like, oh, that's definitely the same as my god. We just have a different name for him. Oh, and also he has this other power that you guys don't know about, and everyone's like, cool.
Yeah. All right, I think, sorry, I had to take a second and try to fix, we're getting some drop frames there. But it's looking better.
The forest sometimes has some optimization issues we're going to look at this week.
Oh, gotcha, yeah, I was wondering about that. Yeah, so how do you sort of feel with this game? Alyssa, real quick, I've been talking a lot. Do you have any questions right now?
I was actually going to ask about how decisions your character makes seem to level up your stats more than just like your combat stats being leveled up from fighting things. How was that decision to like focus more on character development than I guess like combat? Because in a lot of games kind of like this, you'd see you make a decision and it affects the story rather than the individual character. So,
yeah, I mean, at the core of it, I really wanted people to feel like they were different kinds of heroes, that it wasn't just beating things up that was heroic. Because I feel like when I started looking at old myths, it was really clear that most of the time we don't talk about the monster fights. Like, yes, that is an important part of Gilgamesh, and yes, that's an important part of Beowulf or whatever, but they also were doing lots of other things that was really important. Like, it was really important that, Gilgamesh was looking for immortality, that he was actually quite foolish. That was a central part of his narrative. And so I started thinking to myself, like, how do we actually show that you have a cunning hero? How do we show that you have a foolish hero? And since my background is in MMOs and I had designed social systems before, I knew that it was important to let different characters have different identities. Because if it's a pack of 4 foolish heroes, then like, what's the point, right? You might as well play alone. But if you can let each person show their personality separately, then I think you get a lot more of a satisfying mythological interpretation.
Yeah. How do you talk real quick? How you worked as a social designer on what games?
On Age of Conan and The Secret World.
Nice. How did that work kind of affect you here? How did that like social system design?
I mean, I've written a few articles on cooperative problems and solutions, and most of those articles are like 5 years old now, but they're still pretty relevant because there haven't actually been that many big games that have been exploring the co-op space in an interesting, like, problem-solving way since Journey.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, of course there have been many since Journey, but I haven't really seen novel solutions since then.
These things.
Yeah, well, things like, so for example, we deliberately decided to not have a matchmaking system in our game. We got a lot of flack for that on the Steam forums, but the gameplay from the very beginning is set up such that you can totally ruin each other's experience.
Yeah.
And we like that. We like that friends can kind of, bother each other, and it's up to you to police each other.
Yeah.
We didn't want to have to limit it so that strangers could not bother you. There's always a balance between empowerment and harassment.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that's an example of something that I knew from the very beginning. We were like, no, we want to let friends bother each other and be really expressive. And so then we also knew we weren't going to let randos join your game.
Yeah. Melissa, you sometimes when we talk about games, because you and I both play Overwatch, you talk about like how you feel about interacting with other online players. How do you feel about that?
I have my communication set to mute every time. That's the first thing I do when I boot up a new game. So yeah, there's a weird dynamic you can get with random people where it can be a really good experience or it can completely ruin a game for you.
Sorry, story of 2016 right here.
That's actually a Kickstarter backer message.
Nice. Sorry, Alyssa, you were saying.
Yeah, just multiplayer can either make or break a game for me. So I think the decision to include only like a friendly, friend-based co-op mode is actually something I really prefer in games.
I know it's a little bit limiting for people that maybe their friends don't play indie games or they don't see their friends a lot, so it's hard for them. But I think overall it's a better player experience.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen people going on like Reddit then to like matchmake and building communities that way? I bet.
Yeah, we do get Steam forum posts pretty regularly. Like there's a new "Let's get co-op together" thread, and I think that's kind of cool for community building too.
It's a more personal way to do matchmaking almost.
Yeah. Have you unlocked the Songweaver yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unlocked that earlier.
Nothing to lose here.
Figured. But her song is beautiful, so I just want to let that play for a moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
It'll keep playing.
Yeah. We can dance too. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh boy, trying to keep. Oh no.
Yeah. The shieldos are a little bit tough sometimes.
Trying to
so I'm a little unfamiliar. When you die, are you dead? Is that
no? You can be revived infinitely, but you can't get hit while you're reviving someone.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to.
Good luck, Bryant.
Yeah, this will take a minute. Alyssa, if you can take the lead on questions for a minute, I gotta keep Carly alive here.
This is stressful right now. I was gonna ask, because you guys released a free expansion, what was the motivation to do that rather than charging for like a paid expansion down the line?
Well, I mean, it improves the whole game, and I think if people come back in and they log in and play it again, then we're happy because we've made so many improvements since launch. And I think because it's a relatively short game, like I think you can kind of be done with it in 4 or 5 hours. There were probably, lots of people that never got to see our bug fixes. So yeah, I want people to see it at its best and have a good time with it and remember it fondly, especially when we start working on our next game. So I guess I kind of see it as an investment for the future.
How do you feel about maybe like as an indie business model? Because like the ability, like can devs afford it all to like fragment their user base really?
That's another problem. Like maybe if we had sold 1 million copies, then we could defend the idea of charging for an expansion. But even Terraria, I mean, they've been really loud about how they felt like free expansions were better for them. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the idea of charging for DLC needs some serious consideration.
Yeah.
I mean, as it is, enough people are like $15 for a pixel art game.
Yeah.
that we just kind of shrug and say, okay, have fun.
Yeah, hoping we're getting near camp here. Oh.
Maybe. I wish I could tell you, but that's one of the fun things about procedural generation. I actually don't know.
Yeah.
Have you seen the healing pool yet?
Yeah, we did. We used it already.
Okay. But that means that's usually around the 75% point. So you must be somewhat near the end.
Yeah.
But it looks like you went down a side path.
Yeah, well, because the other path we went down didn't have. We went through the gauntlet. We fought our way through like the arena zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You talked about the Mesopotamia thing. I feel really sad. I think we have to go right up here at this intersection, maybe. I'm really sad that I haven't quite gotten to, like, maybe Catherine has gotten to talk to you a little bit more about it. But how did you sort of arrive at Mesopotamia, like, for this game?
We knew that we wanted to make something with ancient mythology, because we knew we were going to do some, like, misremembering and we knew it was also going to be like a fantasy game, but I was personally tired of Greco-Roman, and even Norse seemed like it was getting slightly too much disproportionate love, as interesting as it is. So we looked at a few different mythologies, but Mesopotamia feels so central to all of civilization. In a lot of ways, a lot of scholars think that Mesopotamia was actually the first Christ-like mythology.
Yeah.
And as we developed it more and more, I realized that I really, really liked the pluralism of that region, which I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The idea that different gods were called by different names in different areas. And it's just such a rich period of history when monotheism starts rising and there's some conflict there.
Yeah.
I know that we cartoonified it a little bit in our game and made it a little bit more extreme, but it felt like an inspiration that hadn't been overdone. Let's just say that.
Yeah. That's cool. Let's see here. So this is part of where Alyssa was talking about earlier about where stats and interactions start to come together. If another designer was sort of looking at this, how do you feel like designers should think about, like, trying to express behaviors through stats?
Well, there's a really cool article by Emily Short, actually no relation, and she talks about checks versus gates, and we also came across that problem of do you check for a stat before allowing a choice? So, for example, this is something only someone with high endurance can encounter. Or do you give them the choice and then they succeed or fail based on their endurance? And they each have their own pros and cons. And then when you apply it to things like personality traits and other expressive things, it gets even more complicated. I think my number one learning from making Moon Hunters is probably that people will not assume there is more to the game than they can see.
Yeah.
Even when you tell them it's procedurally generated, if there's content that only appears sometimes, for most people it might as well not exist.
Yeah.
So, well, you're trying to kill the frog, why? So for example, we have some encounters where you can only do them when you are brave, and those are extremely frustrating for people. It's still marginally better than them not encountering them at all while they're not brave. But the ideal would be you encounter the thing and then you have a special potential outcome because you're brave. But that requires, of course, a lot more content and a lot more variance on things.
Yeah. Quick question. Well, that actually makes me think of something. So I'm watching Westworld, which we seem to bring up once a stream here. Alyssa, are you caught up?
Yeah, I am.
All right.
I haven't seen it, so
okay.
Good luck.
So no spoilers. We're going to go this way. I want to explore the top end of the level while we talk. It makes me think a lot about, because of where they are in the game right now, this actually isn't a direct thing the show deals with, like from a drama point of view, but they do, where they are in the story right now, there are characters who've wandered so far to the edge of, like, this Westworld park that they are, like, beyond, like, I'm like, who sees this content? But, like, you see this, like, such like far like this intricately built thing that only like 5 people maybe in total will ever see. How do you feel about stuff like that in games where players may not get to see everything that a game has to offer?
I think it's essential. I think you have to have something for the people that go the extra mile. If your game is expressive, if your game is exploratory, if you don't have those little bits of intrinsically rewarding content for the people that are looking for them, you'll never get the evangelists. You'll never get the people who say, "Oh no, it's worth it. You should put in the effort."
Yeah.
Because I mean, in the end, you're trying to entice people to fall in love with your game, not to just look at it and shrug, right? And so if you want people to fall in love, then you have to reciprocate their affection in some way. And I think that things like Easter eggs are basically an affection reciprocation mechanism.
Yeah. Real quick, hang on, I'm just gonna. This is strange. I apologize for our chat, but our webcams don't seem to be showing up in Hangouts.
Oh no.
This is unusual.
Oh yeah, my portrait's there.
Yeah. Real quick. Okay, we're just gonna keep going on for now. That would take a little too long to fix, and it's already before Thanksgiving. We just want to play the game and have fun. But yeah, I was gonna say right now, before as we do the same, I made a very explicit decision to head to this area we're in right now. It said that Baba Yaga was here, and I will go. Like, Baba Yaga is one of my favorite mythological creations. Can you talk about why you all put this character in the game? What you feel she means for a game like yours?
Right. So our game, our original one also had an encounter with Baba Yaga in the forest.
Yeah.
But then the snow adds another encounter with her.
Yeah.
Although technically, if you read between the lines, you'll see that they're twin sisters. There are 2 of them.
Yeah.
In our game, originally the reason we had her was kind of to hint that this isn't purely any one mythology, that there are some other influences from other places.
Yeah.
And I mean, we do a little bit of subverting in Moon Hunters. A lot of it comes with turning. Yeah. Oh, you found my favorite encounter.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I love Sadko and Iban.
He's very demanding.
Well, the young people, they just get so interested. Oh my.
Oh man, I think we just did a little matchmaking there.
Oh yes.
Played Yenta to these fine folks. Yes, good.
Yeah, you might hear more about that later in camp.
Sweet. But yeah, sorry, I was interrupting you about Baba Yaga. How do you?
No.
Yeah, you were saying.
Right. So in this, one thing I didn't mention is in the expansion, although there are characters named for Mesopotamian, myths as well. A lot of the myths actually come from Slavic lore.
Yeah.
And part of that is because the Middle East just doesn't have very much snow.
Yeah.
Or stories about snow. So we had to look a little bit further afield. But
quick question: did you find any stories about snow?
So Ninlil, which is the default name for the snow dancer, is the goddess of storms in ancient Sumerian. But that was kind of it.
That was it?
There really wasn't a lot about winter and snow in Sumeria.
That is very fair. This looks like a dangerous place.
There's something somebody might want to meet you if you go check it out. So if you're patient.
Someone more. Oh no! Oh no!
I'm patient.
We're foolish.
I could have sworn I was patient.
Go, my little bird.
Really, I'd like to know if you were. Can you check?
Yes.
Sorry, we try not to break our developers' games here on the stream.
No.
Your calm is nearly meditative.
I'm not seeing that on the screen. Interesting. Oh, I guess because you're on the other computer.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay, interesting. I'll have to look in and try to problem solve that then. Thank you. I'm going to write that down. Because sometimes it's friendly, and greeting is the correct thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe because
I was the one initiating contact.
and I'm.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe it's because you weren't the person who went up and talked to it.
Yeah. I want to, Alyssa, do you have anything you want to weigh in on real quick?
I really like that mechanic just there where certain personality traits gained through decisions can affect the encounter you get. Because for me, that's one of I don't replay games a lot, so for me that's one of the few things that can actually make me want to go through it is to create like a different character and a different story for that character rather than just be the lord of the game.
Yeah.
Right, and that's one of the examples of the things I was talking about earlier, where if we didn't tell you, you have to be patient for this, you'd never know. Like, you would have no reason to think that you should replay that thing.
Yeah.
And so that's a moment of transparency where we initially wanted it to be much more in character and moody and role playing, but we had to just be more transparent about the mechanics, or else players just didn't understand.
My question, how do you feel about the value of encountering things that are like truly weird, strange, and uncanny in games? Because I think that's something I've been thinking about a lot with this game and The Witcher, is that I think some of the best times I have with these games is when they go extremely off the rails. And what do you feel about? How do you feel about that as a designer? Because I think I can see arguments for like I've worked for some people who have not like felt that value. They've had different opinions about like game experiences and such.
I mean, I think it's a very personal taste thing. I'm personally really interested in novelty whenever I play games.
Yeah.
I don't like feeling like I can predict exactly what's going to happen. I like feeling on the edge of my seat. But that's a different motivation, like part of my personality type, whereas other people prefer the exact opposite, where they prefer to be able to strategize exactly what's going to happen and then feel the satisfaction of that success. But I think when I'm a designer and writer, I have to be really careful not to go off the rails constantly, because it's very easy to desensitize the player and just feel like it's completely unknowable, and that's very alienating.
Yeah.
But if you can balance it such that it's like 80% predictable and 20% surprising. Or what I like to do is think how, like, if it's 80% predictable and then 20% exaggerated. Like it's kind of what you were expecting, but more extreme. And I think players find that really fun because they feel simultaneously smart and also intrigued by this thing that wasn't quite what they expected.
That's interesting. How do you? But then I think sometimes when we talk about making systems like that, we're talking about making content. But how do you feel that applies to system design? Like 80% normal, 20% unexpected.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it depends, of course, what kind of a game you're making. I don't know if you saw the manifesto by Pietro on the Rejecta manifesto.
No, I saw everyone was posting that.
Yeah, it's like explicitly 0% traditional systems allowed, and I think if you're trying to make a commercial game, it's very, very difficult to give the player something that is completely systemically, how to put this, uniterated, I guess. I feel like there's so many different languages inside games, like the language of hit points, the language of even what is strength, what does it mean, what does it do, that if you try to invent all new symbols, like one of the things we considered for Moon Hunters, we initially were like, okay, can we do something that is a different metaphor than combat? And the answer is that it's so much work. Like, combat is such this advanced culture. Like, we have so many symbols and metaphors going on simultaneously that the only thing comparable is maybe like poker or something like, or solitaire or something like that. There's just so many arbitrary things that we know are interesting decisions. I'm kind of rambling at this point, but I guess my feeling is still probably that if you were to look at Moon Hunter systems, I think you'll see it's probably still 80% relatively recognizable and 20% what's going on here. I'm not quite sure. Let's look at that again.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Real quick, we're going to backtrack because we haven't found Baba Yaga yet.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And I came
yeah,
here
she
to find
hides
Baba
in the
Yaga.
corners. One thing I did want to mention about Baba Yaga is I think one thing I've realized is consistent about the way I build content for Moon Hunters.
Yeah.
It's if I read a legend, which is very common, about an evil woman,
Sorry.
I'm much more. Oh,
what should we select here?
Oh, it's fine. Whatever you want.
Sorry, you were saying evil women.
Yeah, no, there's so many stories that, I mean, basically the history of myths as they've been recorded have been very pro-patriarchy, and that's just reflecting our culture, which has been building for thousands of years. And so some of the things that we had to rework were, some of it was turning some male characters female, but some of it was also just looking at the roots of why the myth is told. Like Baba Yaga is a good example of a myth that's told to scare children.
Yeah.
It's supposed to make kids not wander randomly into the forest because it's dangerous out there, and that's a good evolutionary thing to do.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of really common to say, oh, but the perfect manifestation of evil is the single woman who's very powerful.
Yeah.
And so for us,
power is the most dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. And so for Baba Yaga is an example of a woman who mostly just wants to be left alone, and she is a little bit nasty.
Yeah. Any advice on this sled?
Oh, quickly is much more interesting. Quickly, you're gonna go somewhere.
All right. Sorry to keep interrupting you.
No problem. You're exploring. There's stuff to break at least.
Yeah. That's I mean, like, I think what's interesting is like because there must be something here.
No. That's for the cave.
Oh, we're meant to leave.
Yeah.
Okay. I think personally, like, it's interesting. How do you feel about the fact that like sometimes characters like Baba Yaga are so interesting because because of that? Like, where do you feel like reclaiming evilness makes it to this?
I think it's hard. Like, that's part of why Baba Yaga is one of the rare exceptions where I allowed it to be. Just she is bad.
Yeah.
She has captured a girl and made her servant.
We're still trying to find her, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at your map trying to figure out where you might have missed her. She's always. Oh, it looks like maybe up north.
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah, I see there.
Yeah. I don't know. It's definitely a personal taste thing of when you feel safe. Like, when can you rewrite something that's obscure enough to your audience that they won't feel like you betrayed them, but it's familiar enough that they also will recognize that you're calling
also an area down south we haven't gone either.
Oh, south is where we came from, I think. So we're gonna check up here.
I think it's there's nobody knows. That's what I think.
Found her.
So I really like going off the folklore, the kind of folklore storytelling this has. It reminds me a lot of like how bards would tell stories back in the old days before anything was written down, where they'd be able to like cater their story based on the audience or based on who was remembering or telling it. Because that like ability to have multiple playthroughs with different stories and different heroes doing different things kind of plays off of that in a similar way.
Yep.
Real quick, Tanya in the chat also points out that you talked about this when you did a piece for Vice Gaming. She did a piece for Vice Gaming, which I guess is now Waypoint.
I just recently I did a piece for Waypoint that was about Crunch.
Yeah.
I don't know if I did much about storytelling for Vice.
Oh, I guess Tanya did the piece, and you had this is back when what?
Oh, right. Yeah. Tanya wrote an amazing thing about Moon Hunters.
Yeah.
It was super awesome.
We can talk about. Let's pivot to talking about Crunch, because this is something you've actually been super passionate about.
Sure.
And have spent a lot of time.
Hey, don't go that way. Don't do that.
Okay. We broke it.
No. You're fine. Just.
But yeah, let's talk about Crunch, because just for some background for our audience about, I believe you created a list of developers who are trying to pledge to not participate in Crunch while making games.
Well, that's not strictly true.
Not strictly true, sorry.
Strictly, the list is just people who don't want to crunch.
Yeah.
It's not a pledge not to crunch, because we all make mistakes and we all mess up sometimes. But the reason I made it like back in 2015 was because I saw a lot of people kind of humble bragging about it, and I felt like that was kind of gross, because we have kind of this, I don't know, I guess in North America at least, it's very common to be loudly industrious and claim it makes you better than other people, and that really bothered me.
Yeah. But how do you feel? I think it's interesting thing is that like you've approached this a lot from Crunch's indie side perspective too. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about indie developers like participating in Crunch and how it affects their work?
I think we would make a lot better games if people could have some discipline about how often they work on the game. I understand the pressure that you feel like you're under. I know that you want to do your best work.
Yeah.
And it's an extreme version of a lot of AAA with voluntary crunch as well.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think when you're on your own, it's easy to say, well, it's just me, I'm not punishing anyone else. When you're on a team, it's easy to say, oh, well, they're counting on me, I can't let them down. Basically, there's always a reason why you feel a huge amount of pressure to do your best, and for some reason, people interpret your best as self-destruction. Which I wouldn't really care about so much, except that I also feel like that alienates a large number of people who would otherwise be making games. Instead, they get burnt out and feel like, well, I shouldn't be making games unless I can pull 80-hour weeks. And most humans can't. Yeah. So, and most humans who think they can are wrong. So that's a whole other complication.
Yeah. I think Alyssa, you can relate to this. It's something that's challenging when you're a freelance writer too, because you feel that urge to like take on so much work. Partly because you feel the economic sting.
But
it sort of exists at our end of the business too, is when you're trying to just keep afloat. And then you think, I can do more than keep afloat, I can make it thrive if I just sacrifice my day.
Part of it for both sides of like developers and writers alike is it's a really cool career and we're making really cool things on both sides of the fence. But like personally, I feel like I have to work extra hard to show that I deserve this sometimes. And I've talked to some developers who feel the same way a lot. They love their job so much that they feel like they have to put that extra 200% into it because of that.
Yeah, and I think part of it keeps coming back to the average game developer. If I say we shouldn't be crunching anymore, they say, yeah, that's true, but it makes better games. Like there's this fundamental belief that more work hours equals better work, even though science over and over and over has shown that's not true.
Yeah.
It just feels true. Like it's just one of those basic things that humans, at least in our culture and a few other cultures, want to believe that it wouldn't be fair. If you put in 200 hours and you didn't get a better game out of it, it's just not fair. So it must be true.
Let's see, taking us back to camp again. Let's talk about the metagame stuff.
Sure.
Because we're shaping these characters who are going to matter once we wrapped up this stuff. How did you sort of think about designing them? Like, what do you think about I don't know. How do you approach metagame design at all? You and I haven't gotten to talk about that much. It's just kind of like, I guess for me, it's just how.
Well, I mean, when we first started looking at replayable metagame stuff in Shattered Planet, it definitely felt a little bit like, I don't know, it felt a little dirty, I guess, because the pure roguelike, of course, has no metagame.
Yeah.
Other than the one that's happening in your head, where you're learning new things and doing better the next time. But for Moon Hunters, we didn't want it to be a skill test at all. We wanted it to be an exploratory, learning more about what the world is and how the logic of it works and who populates it.
Yeah.
And so that's what we built the metagame around, is like you're building your pantheon in the stars of your different heroes. And so when we made the expansion, we looked at how we could bring that more to the forefront, make that more rewarding, and make sure that the Pantheon you're building isn't just an achievements list.
Yeah.
Because that's what it ended up feeling like a little bit.
Carly, are you able to select the Tower Ravine?
I'm looking for it.
Right to the right. Down. Up.
There's
Is it
nothing
not
here.
available to you?
No.
Interesting.
Whoa!
That's an interesting glitch.
Okay. Oh wait, no, go wait. Okay. Scroll your mouse to the right. A little more. Scroll up. And hit E.
That worked apparently.
New cooperative gameplay brought to you by Moon Hunters.
Yeah. So I was like,
Feature.
I wasn't quite sure what you were doing there.
I was looking for you and you had disappeared off the map.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Just breaking your game all over the place today.
No problem.
Yeah. Sorry, we're visiting here because the forest, the other like you said, forest has optimization levels. I don't want to mess up the stream at all.
Yep. No problems.
Yeah. How do you feel you could that you're able to educate players on, like, I don't know, like I've had a hard like for me, for instance, I've had a hard time sometimes figuring out where to go on that map. How do you feel players can sort of like, how do you feel you've done it, like have you done a successful job or not? Yeah, I'm breaking everything in your home. You're rude to me. I don't know, how do you feel? Sorry, that's a really poorly phrased question, but how do you feel?
No. It's an important one because it was something we struggled with a lot internally. Whether we should do a more FTL, like just go to the right and pick a level from a selection. I really wanted to have an expressive, go where you want, explore according to your goals kind of thing. But it's definitely, it's tricky because I feel like the goal of many designers is to have players self-identify their own goals and pursue them. But for that to happen, there's so many prerequisites. Like, players have to know what are the possible goals I can pick from.
Yeah.
What is achievable within these systems. And so I think if there's anything I would like to improve, like let's pretend we made a sequel or something, I would want to make it, I'd still want it to be self-expressive of what you are trying to do with this playthrough, where you're trying to go, what you're trying to do, but I might want to communicate better what are the options, what are the possible things you could encounter and accomplish, and maybe even make that a little bit more mechanical. Because right now, like, there's some tension in between the player's desire for meaningful progression. Like, I feel like that's a lot of designers are slightly overexposed, I guess, to progression and the dopamine that happens when your numbers go up and you feel like you're building on something that is meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I've been too afraid of it. Maybe I haven't allowed quite enough progression candy. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Alyssa, do you have any questions about that?
Yeah, so I just didn't forget it. Going off of like how you said the D&D inspirations that this had based on the game jam game you guys came up with, that playing into the progression, I guess, where you have that like one central, you have players deciding where they want to go, and you have eventually in D&D you'd have the DM to be like, okay,
right,
back onto the path. Have you guys, how have you guys worked out how to kind of like replicate that DM experience so that players are able to do what they want but still not deviate too much from the actual narrative of the game?
Well, I think in the end, the expressiveness came out of the personality traits.
Okay.
And so that's part of why the world map is so unclear, is that like we don't really mark different areas like this is a place to become foolish or something like that.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if you were to translate this into a more DM experience, I'd imagine the game master would be able to give you like stories, of how this forest is talked about, or like even just genuinely ask the players out of character, like, what are you trying to do right now?
Yeah.
So that I can prepare behind the scenes for you. Whereas that's not something we can do, obviously. But I think part of allowing for that personal expression and giving a sense that yes, you did something is still more satisfying, even if that something wasn't what you were trying to do. Just exploring and figuring out that, like, yes, at least something was accomplished somewhere, is the desired intent.
Because I feel like a lot of roguelikes I play are big on like punishment, and then you learn your lesson after you die from that. But Moon Hunter seems to be more in the way of you explore and you learn something for your next playthrough without that like active like getting your wrist slapped for it directly.
Yeah, no, something that was important. If you look up at the skull thingy, if you go up on the thing, you'll talk to it as well. But yeah, no, it's supposed to be almost less about challenge checks and more about how are you using your time, because you have limited amounts of time before the game ends.
Yeah.
And so you're really trying to maximize how much you can find and how much you can understand and how many interesting things you can influence before it's over. There's a shiny coin there as well, actually. I know it's a little subtle. But yeah, if you could talk to spirits, you would find an interesting, unique character here that was actually invented by a Kickstarter backer. And actually, we found out a lot of our Kickstarter backers donated their D&D characters. Like, that wasn't what we asked them for. We just said, hey, do you want to make up a character? And if they did, it was their D&D character.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
I think something I've thought about that is it's easier, because like the Kickstarter backer, they may not be a writer themselves, but like D&D has given them the tool to understand how to make characters, so like they become attached to that. I've thought about that.
Yeah. I haven't thought about that before, but you're right. Like, that might be the only time they have invented a character in the past.
Yeah.
I also know a lot of people that when they create a D&D character, they'll often recreate that character in any other game that has a character creator, because I guess there's a sort of attachment to it.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a sense of identity when you invest hours into a certain personality type as well.
Yeah.
Chaos!
This is hard. Oh, this helps. Sometimes the stream turns into me shouting at things.
Yeah, there's actually, if you ever found it too hard or too easy, there's also difficulty settings in the options now.
Oh, there is?
We added that in the expansion.
That's wonderful.
The number of people in the forums who were like,
I'm gonna heal real quick.
It's too hard.
We should hit up this fountain before we go in there.
How's the overall community reception been for the expansion so far?
It's been great so far. Of course, we have a couple of things we have to fix, as you've seen, but it's been great because nobody expected it.
Yeah.
We didn't promise it to anybody, and we just announced it a couple of weeks ago. So it kind of came out of the blue for most of our fans, which I think is the best way to get a gift.
I saw you talking on Twitter. That's nice. Yeah. You were saying that this actually was you're getting a sales spec off of it.
Yeah.
How do you? I don't know. Can you talk about the business end of that for a minute? Like, I know Steam spells and sales spikes are so important for indies, and like it can be like people exhaustively look at Steam spy and stuff trying to figure that out. What's been your experience with that with Moon Hunters?
So for our experiences is that your launch day predicts a lot about the future of your game.
Yeah.
Both Moon Hunters and Shattered Planet follow the same kind of curve, which is that the launch day is your highest, and then you're not going to get that kind of money again until you go 40% off, 50% off.
Yeah.
Which should be after a while, because you have to provide value to the people who buy it at launch.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is that we had not sold enough copies to really qualify for a Steam Daily deal quite. Like, I don't think there is a magic number. It's just like, you know, we weren't a mega successful game. So normally we wouldn't qualify. But because we had this expansion in the works, we were able to work something out. And hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying that. But I think when you show that you're supporting your customers, and you're not just abandoning the game. And for us, we also saw that we had a large number of people with it on their wish list. So we were able to kind of leverage that and say, hey, we think that this game has a lot more value than has currently been shown. That's something that business partners like to hear. And so even when we're talking to potential platform holders, like if we wanted to bring this game to a new console, you know, we try to use every possible argument that the game has value. And ideally, I think that, you know, in the society we're in, sales are the best way to do that. But you can also suggest other things, like winning IGF is a big show that your game has value. I think all the beautiful articles, I mean, the articles by Tanya and Catherine, and I don't know if you saw the one by Michael Cook today. I mean, they're super, super helpful for us in feeling confident that, yes, we did build something of value. And yes, we should keep trying to show business people that value, even if the sales aren't as strong as you would expect.
Speaking of Michael Cook, we're gonna check out cooking for a second, because you said something to me once that stuck with me for a long time, and that you think cooking is a wonderful thing in games. And,
I love cooking.
And that games should take advantage of it. Or what do you think of? Can you explain that one to me?
Yeah, I think.
And do you have any advice on what I should cook with ice?
Probably not vegetables. Fruit is good. Sweetness is good. I think ice and water is not going to be very delicious.
Ice and berries.
That sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, but you were saying.
I like cooking in games because I think it's like the ultimate nostalgia that we all have. Like, we all eat and we all had delicious meals when we were kids. And it's kind of the most intuitive, complex combinatorial system that is in every single household. So it's like the ultimate accessible, exploratory system. Like, I know I was talking about how combat has all these layers of languages, but cooking has a few of those layers too. Like, we all know what spices do, and we all know kind of what adding water to something should make it more soup-like. And I mean, when you get to the intersection of where players can predict something, but also not know exactly what will happen, that's really a rich, beautiful place to experiment with new designs, I think, which is why I'd love to just make cooking games forever.
Real quick, Carly, we're unless we need to go to the Forest Grove, I'm looking down here at the center of the map just to see what's down here. Are you able to move your cursor down here?
I just figured I'd move towards where the fires were.
Right. Real quick, can you give us some advice real quick on what we should be looking for right now that the fires have started?
Well, the burned forests won't have very much in them. They've been mostly gutted by the
Sun Tribe
cultists. I think, do you have any, I guess you haven't been to the desert yet, you haven't been to a river yet.
Desert or
those
river?
Places are cool. I think you saw, there's also little salt flats. Salt flats have a couple
flats?
of characters in it. In the upper right, I think I saw that you had salt flats. I'm not sure, it's a little bit blurry for me.
Yes.
Oh no,
the estuary?
What are those? Are those some forests that haven't burned?
Yeah.
That's something special then.
Oh.
You might see something there.
I hope we don't stress our stream. Real quick, Tanya, thanks for joining us in the chat. Tanya, referring to Diverse Games Tanya, she's just signed off in the chat.
Bye.
So yeah, we're gonna check this out.
Interestingly, this map is already filled out.
Wait.
So it looks like you've happened upon something where the Sun Cultists are building their ultimate weapon.
Oh no. We're here early. All right, this actually is good timing. All right. Now we need to...
So this is the ultimate, like, difficult version. Good luck.
Luckily, this is why I had her. This is why I asked Carly to take Blood Mages. I discovered she's very overpowered.
Yeah. So you gotta hit his head while he's down.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I almost got him. Almost got him. Yeah. Here we go. How do you feel about boss fights? Alyssa and Tanya, question for you both. How do you feel about boss fights in the year of our Lord 2016? Is they're a debated thing now. They aren't as required in design as they might have used to be.
I enjoy boss fights when things kind of like slope into them gradually instead of just like suddenly like... Sometimes games can get really predictable once you figure out it's like, okay, I do 2 fights and then I have to fight a boss, and it kind of takes the fun out of it, I think. But
I think I am very excited about making core gameplay that can be ramped up.
Oh,
and
no. Ooh, we died. But this is actually a cool thing to show off, because even though we died, death is not the end.
Nope.
Oh.
Someone in chat was asking, saying that's the only ending they've ever seen, and wanting to know if that's how it always ends, or if there's other ways to get to
There are a few extra endings. I can tell you that...
This is the worst ending I've ever gotten.
There's also an ultimate happy ending, which is probably not canon, but you can get it. There's also an ending in which you and Marduk run away together. So I recommend raising your charm if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But I guess you can say that the ultimate ending is not gotten through violence. It's gotten through forgiveness and arcane secrets.
Yeah.
But so what I was saying before was that it's in a game that is about combat, like that is the core gameplay. Ramping up the pacing without having more combat is almost impossible. So if you're going to make a game that doesn't have the equivalent, I think even if you don't have combat, you're going to have the equivalent of something that is like a boss fight, but it's for, a cooking boss fight is maybe not about combat, but you're still going to have moments of high intensity, of emotional intensity that you have to do.
Yeah.
Because if it's all the same pacing, then it's very boring.
Yeah. So we're running out of time here. Alyssa, do you have any last questions for Tanya before we go?
I think I'm good.
Oh, this is cool.
So this is metagame story. So you basically unlocked the endless arena.
Yeah.
And if you beat wave 10, then you basically beat the game because you've defeated the sun god and you unlock a special the ending basically.
Whoa. That's so cool. And that's how you will this exit out the game if I hit exit game?
Yep.
Okay, so I need to confirm because I want to go. I want to. Uh-oh.
It's okay. It's how it is.
Yes. So we're wrapping up today. In this pre-Thanksgiving stream. Thank you so much to our audience for coming. Thank you, Tanya, for joining us. And thank you, Carly, for helping me play the game and die gloriously in battle to unlock its secrets.
No problem.
This is really cool. I think it's really cool when games push into the weird and like try to use like common game language, even if it's violent, to try and do cool and interesting things. So that's what I appreciate about this game, Tanya.
Thank you very much for playing, Bryant.
Yeah.
And your kind words.
Thank you. And I hope everyone in our audience, if you're American, I hope you have a Thanksgiving. If you're elsewhere in the world, I hope you just have a good day and a good week. I'm Brian Francis, contributing editor to Gamasutra. And Alyssa, can you sign yourself out?
And I'm Alyssa Macklin, also contributing editor for Gamasutra.
Cool. And have a good day, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.